What's going on? Shemaine Diamond K in here, of course, on Fire Television, the Diamond K Show. And it has been one of those days, man, where the news stories are coming and coming and coming. Here in the program, we deliver the biggest political and trending news stories of the day with original reporting from across the country, emanating from our studios in Baltimore and Atlanta. Show is fun, show is upbeat, but I also want to expose what is really happening in this country. On this program, I will give you the American story from my perspective. In addition to the top news stories of the day, we also check social media for the latest topics on your mind. Join me weekdays, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. for the Diamond K Show on Fire Television. So, as we have been following two trials, one theme. What is that theme? White men taking the law into their own hands. That is the reoccurring theme, right? The trials of Kyle Rittenhouse and the three men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery have had different outcomes, different stories, coming just days apart. They laid bare a very dangerous and long-running current in the fight for racial equality. There is an underlining theme here. What is that theme? The theme is that for some reason, white Americans have been grabbing guns and trying to take their own stand against what they perceive to be lawlessness, particularly by Black people. And so these two cases, which ended with the acquittal for Rittenhouse last week and the guilty verdicts for Arbery's killers today, they showcase the polarizing issues of self-defense, of gun laws, of racial injustice, a lot of things that we need to unpack. And these are serious subjects, obviously subjects that people feel very strongly about. So the two cases, as I said, ending with these different verdicts, different results. And, you can't have it both ways. So a lot of folks unhappy about the Rittenhouse verdict. A lot of people happy with it. Now, ironically, many of the folks who are happy or were happy with the Rittenhouse acquittal are not happy about the outcome of today's case with the killers of Ahmaud Arbery being found guilty. Right? So many of the folks who are happy about today's verdict, unhappy about the Rittenhouse case. So you have this, you have these situations at odds with each other. Two cases, two polarizing cases. They also force some questions. Who or what is being protected and from whom? Should the peace of mind for white Americans come at the expense of the protection and the safety of Black Americans? That's the question. That is what is at the heart of all of this. When you look at what happened in Kenosha, there was a Black Lives Matter protest. It was a protest against the shooting that happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, right? And so you have this protest. And then so you have some white people, Black people, but you have people that have a certain feeling about the protest. Not so much what is being protested. I don't even think that a lot of folks are even concerned about that. Is how dare these people congregate in our community, blah, 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 right? A lot of different things. But much of this issue is supposed to be about protection and safety. Is it about the safety and protection of white people or white property? Um, it really is a sense that it is on them to put black lives, put these people back in their proper place. How dare they? Right? There's a lot of that in the air. A lot of that. Ahmaud Arbery was a black man chased down and shot to death by white men who were suspicious of an outsider in their predominantly white Georgia neighborhood. I mean, that's what happened. They were suspicious of him. They weren't the police. They weren't even security guards. So sometimes what you encounter is the arrogance, the entitlement of folks. So they think they can stop you. Hey, where you going? What are you doing around here? Right? You've seen those videos on social media where, yeah, what they call like Karen, is asking, where's your ID? Who you around here to see? That kind of stuff. And some people are just not for it. Some black people are just not for the questioning by another citizen of who they are, where they're going, what are they doing in this area, blah, 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 blah. So Ahmaud Arbery, black man, chased and shot to death by these white men who were suspicious of an outsider in their neighborhood. In Wisconsin, while both Rittenhouse and the three men he shot were white, right? The encounter was triggered. Everything was triggered by the 17-year-old's decision to go from his home in Illinois to Kenosha armed with an AR-15 style rifle, doing what he claims, protecting the local businesses from the Black Lives Matter protesters. How dare you have a protest in a neighboring state? Right? I mean, that's what happened. That's what we're looking at. That is the situation. That's what happened, right? So he was empowered, emboldened, offended. How dare these people get together and have this protest? There is a connection here, unmistakable. The connection is unmistakable. The idea is that white men who perceive a problem should just go and grab a gun and wade into trouble and then claim self-defense. Both things cannot be true. They perceive a problem. Just a civilian. We're not talking about law enforcement. That's a whole nother situation in itself. Is this a product of a gun culture? Yes. It's also a product of laws that give white men with guns the ability to create chaos and sometimes get away with it. Not all the time, sometimes. So we have these two trials, different outcomes. And I'm not of the mindset as everyone else that I've been seeing on social media over celebrating. They have not been sentenced yet. So I will reserve my total judgment when I hear the time that they get. These cases have highlighted the deep racial rift in American society. We really started to see big cracks in that foundation last year. Of course, there was a broad movement for racial justice swept across this country in the wake of the George Floyd murder, right? This is all connected. I mean, the folks that stormed the Capitol, all this is connected. It comes from the same mindset. Same mindset. The insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. An overwhelmingly white crowd of supporters of former President Trump. Mad, enraged even, that according to them, which is not true, but according to them, the 2020 election was stolen from them. This is that same mindset. So they've got to storm the building in an effort to take ownership of the government. This is the same thing. Vigilantism. And they run in the Capitol, right? Most people get a smack on the wrist if they got that. And we talk about this over and over again. If that had been Black Lives Matter protesters running in the Capitol and just waving their flags, not hurting anything, just waving a flag, a literal flag, oh, that outcome would have been horrible. And you know this. You know this. So this thing about vigilantism, something so precious, something is being stolen from me and my community by those who are unworthy, undeserving. That's the mindset. White vigilantism. This stems from a desire of some white people to, quote unquote, keep the Black population, especially the Black male population, under surveillance, under control, under the thumb. Oh, how dare you come out of place? That's the mindset. It has evolved. It has evolved over time. But there is a long history in this country of people taking the law into their own hands. Long history of white Americans using that as a pretext to violently enforce racial boundaries. Long history of that. Do your research. Do your research. This is not the first time that armed citizens have run up in some government building in this country. Do your research. Definitely. When I think about the death, the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, it really brings to mind the 2012 killing of Trayvon Martin. Black teenager by a white Hispanic man patrolling the Florida subdivision. You remember that? Against supposed criminals. That was a case of a cautionary tale. Just being Black can make you a target. This is on a level that white people don't understand. They don't understand it. They haven't gone through it. Many of them don't accept that that is a fact because they can't understand the mindset of a Black person in this country. The killers of Ahmaud Arbery were operating under a slave patrol code. They thought that they were deputized. You have a certain segment of white people that think all white people are deputized and have the power to question anybody black about why are you here. That is a problem. That is a problem. And it ain't 1865 anymore. It ain't 1950. Sooner or later, this mindset is going to be broken. During the civil rights movement, police would often turn the blind eye to white vigilantes coming to black communities to put down protests. This is nothing new. Do your research if you don't believe me. This is nothing new. What is changing, though, is how black people are going to deal with it. That's changing. Rittenhouse victims, 3 white men. But why were they there? Race stood at the heart of that case. I mean, let's keep in mind, he decided to take up arms in defense of property during a Black Lives Matter protest. And his victims were white men who were standing up for the equal treatment of Black Americans. Race is at the heart of this whole thing. Attacking, killing the white allies of Black liberation has always been part of the story. That is where we are. Now, whether you want to go back to white abolitionists, Elijah Lovejoy was killed. He was an abolitionist, newspaper editor, fatally shot. Now, I'm going back in the day. Fatally shot by a pro-slavery mob in Illinois back in 1837. And his killers were found not guilty. There's been a long history of this. This is nothing new. Oh, but change is coming. What is so ironic about this, the manipulation of the Donald Trumps, of the Republicans in the world that have this mindset of controlling, lying to, shaping the perspective of poor white people, getting them to feel like Black people are taking something from them. Brown people are taking something from them. Those Americans, Black Americans, let me say this to white people, Black Americans, brown Americans, they're not your enemy. China's our enemy. These other Americans, they're not your enemy. But what is so crazy is that we have a real problem. China's a real problem. We talk about the supply chain. We talk about all these things. China has a big army. China has a lot of money. But most of our stuff is made there. If they want to shut things down here, they could do that without firing a shot. That's our enemy. But we have a lot of these government officials, so-called politicians, that have stoked the flames, have us at odds with each other, when the real enemy is going unchecked. That's a problem. We've got to do something about that. There's a lot more that Americans have in common. We're not leaning on what we have in common. Yeah, so that's an issue. Now, how do we get there? How do we get? I mean, there's a lot of bumps in the road. There are a lot of problems. There are a lot of things. This is not an easy solution. Now, so I don't want you to think that I am stating that this is an easy fix, because it's not. But it is fixable. It is fixable. Just tuning in the Don McKay Show here on Fire Television. And, you can follow the Don McKay Show on our Facebook page. Click the notification bell so you get an alert whenever we go live. Of course, the Don McKay Show is an On Fire Television production. You can get this program on demand at WRF Radio, the app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and, of course, YouTube.com/DJ Diamond K. And I'm very excited about the WRF Radio app. Take a moment to download that in your app store. Send me a comment. Leave me a message. Scroll your timeline. Attend a Zoom meeting on mute. Do some online shopping, all while listening to the Don McKay Show. We're going to do this. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with more of the program after this. And we are back. The Don McKay Show is sponsored by Tasty Moscato. If you could pour sexy into a glass, this would be it. This smooth, seductive wine, blended with vanilla, takes your palate to a whole nother level of taste me. Unlike most, Tasty Moscato can be deliciously paired with a variety of meats, cheeses, veggies, as well as desserts. It's the sweet taste of luxury that you've been craving. It is Tasty Moscato. You can check them out on Facebook and Instagram, Tasty Moscato. So we're talking about, just some of the deeper issues and some of the things at play. 2 trials, one theme: white men taking the law into their own hands. So the 3 men that you see here charged in the death of Ahmaud Arbery, convicted of murder. Today, we got the first step into getting some justice for the black man who was running empty-handed through a Georgia subdivision when white strangers chased him, trapped him, and blasted him with a shotgun. So I don't know if a lot of you knew that. He was killed with a shotgun. Killed with a shotgun. So the February 2020 slaying didn't get a lot of attention at first. Very limited attention. When a video of the shooting leaked online, Arbery's death quickly became another example of America's reckoning of racial injustice. So this happened in a way that black people understand. A lot of things that happen, a lot of these big national stories, not surprising to many black people, not surprising at all, unfortunately, because we see it so often. So these 3 men all face a mandatory sentence of life in prison. That's what they're facing. Doesn't mean that's what they're going to get. The judge will decide whether their sentences are served with or without the possibility of parole. So as the first of the 23 guilty verdicts were read, Arbery's father had to leave the courtroom after leaping up and shouting. This was a very difficult case, obviously, for the family, for a lot of people. The overt dog whistles, bullhorn, um, the overt racism by the defense showed you the mindset of some Americans. Showed you that mindset. You know, it is sad that we continue to see these type of cases. Very sad. The Cobb County's executive assistant district attorney said that we commend the courage and bravery of this jury to say that what happened on February the 23rd, 2020 to Ahmaud Arbery, the hunting and killing of Ahmaud Arbery, it was not only morally wrong, but legally wrong. And we are thankful for that. She said that LaTanya Hines, the Cobb County Executive Assistant District Attorney. And there were a lot of comments about this case. You could scroll social media. A lot of folks talking about it. I posted something about it on our Instagram page at the Diamond K Show. And, you know, I said that I want to see the sentence. I just hope that they get what they deserve. Get what they deserve. So, you know, the attorney, the attorney for the defense, one of the attorneys, all three of the attorneys, really, the way they presented the case, the racist things that they were saying, putting on trial the victim in this case. Some of those things were done because that's what they believe, that's the mindset that they had, but also they were trying to provoke a certain reaction to try to get grounds for a mistrial, to try anything, throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping something stuck. However, none of that stuff worked. Jury found all three Georgia men guilty of murder in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, 25 years old. The trio pursued and confronted him, seeing him running through their neighborhood. The audacity. So, some of these counts: malice murder, 1 count each. Gregory McMichael, not guilty. Travis McMichael, guilty. William Bryan, not guilty on that count. Malice murder. Felony murder, 4 counts each. They were all found guilty of those 4 counts, except for William Bryan was found not guilty on one of those 4 counts. Aggravated assault, 2 counts each. Everyone was found guilty on those 2 counts, except for one of those counts. William Bryan was not guilty on one of those counts. But the father and son, guilty on both counts, and 1 count of aggravated assault, Bryan found guilty on as well. 1 count each of false imprisonment. They were all found guilty on that 1 count. Criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment, 1 count each. They were all found guilty of that. So the disproportionately white jury received the case around noon on Tuesday. Soon after returning to court Wednesday morning, the jury sent a note to the judge asking to view two versions of the shooting: the original and the one that investigators enhanced to reduce shadows, 3 times apiece. So, jurors returned to the courtroom to see the videos and listen again to the 911 call one of the defendants made from the bed of the pickup truck about 30 seconds before the shooting. On the 911 call, the jury reviewed Greg McMichael telling the operator, "I'm out here at Satilla Shores. There's a black male running down the street." That's the police call. This is so crazy. He then starts shouting, apparently, as Arbery is running toward the idling truck, McMichael's idling truck, with Brian's truck coming up behind him. So literally they're chasing him. "Stop right there. Damn it. Stop." Travis, gunshots can be heard a few seconds later. I mean, who are these people that think that that's okay? The graphic video that emerged a few months later, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations took the case, quickly arrested the 3 men only after this video came out. The defense attorneys contended that the McMichaels were trying to do a legal citizen's arrest when they set off after Arbery, seeking to detain and question him after he was seen running from a nearby home under construction. So not only do we have to fight to ensure that the police act lawfully, we have regular citizens who think that they can just deputize themselves and then they're law enforcement as well. What? Are you serious? So at the time of his death, Arbery was trying to become an electrician, like his several family members. And the opportunity now gone for good. Because these men thought they were the police, and they were not. What they are convicted murderers. So I don't want to minimize the fact that these convictions are a victory. But like I said, I want to see the whole thing through. It's not going to heal most of the wounds. It's not going to heal the family's void. It's not going to end the long history of inequality. But it's a start. It's something that we can hang our hats on. Right? See what Raquel Jackson says. He didn't have anything in his hands. That is true. Very true. There was no reason for these entitled white men to take it upon themselves to inject themselves in Ahmaud Arbery's life at all. Can you imagine if this was another way? Imagine if Ahmaud Arbery was a white guy running in a predominantly black neighborhood, and 3 black men cornered him, chased him, killed him with the shotgun. Oh, these white people would be outraged. Black people would be outraged, right? But here you had some people thinking that they were going to try to sell this as a, they felt like they were in danger. They thought that they had the same rights that police officers had. Like, y'all are not the police. He don't have to listen to y'all. Y'all just regular Joes. Regular Joes. Regular Joes trying to act like the po-po. Your man Don McKay in here. And so all three of these guys charged the death of Ahmaud Arbery. This man was killed with a shotgun. Okay? Killed with a shotgun. And when you think about the defense attorney talking about the black pastors being intimidating, this is that same kind of mindset. This is that same kind of mindset that had those murderers, thinking that they were justified. It's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable because while many are celebrating this conviction, right? White vigilantism, the vigilantes, it still is a very real threat. It's a real threat. So this father and son, along with their neighbor, convicted on 23 of 27 counts. And you still are going to have people, white people, that are going to think that they can take the law into their own hands. Not enough convictions have happened to change that yet. Now, this trio is a good start, but it is not enough to change things just yet. Another thing that worked to the advantage of the prosecution, this encounter was partially recorded on a cell phone video. This was a lynching in broad daylight. And it would have been perfectly okay if it wasn't for the video footage. Not for the video footage, these murderers would have walked away scot-free. Let that sink in. Because their attorneys argued that their clients had a duty to protect their neighborhood and were within their legal right to detain Arbery, citing a Civil War era citizens arrest law, which was repealed earlier this year. So there's still more to do with regards to this. Still more to do. These white men suspected Arbery of a string of burglaries in the area. Oh, why? Because he was black. Because he was black. Right? And so you have that. Jury found the three Georgia men guilty of murder. Right? The defense lawyers told jurors that it was justified. They were justified in using the lethal force because his client feared for his life. Oh, he's acting like he's the police, right? That's what police say. Fear. I had to use lethal force because I was in fear for my life. Go away. I want to come home to my family. That whole thing. Ahmaud Arbery, of course, unarmed, nothing in his hand, none of that. Feared for his life, and he tussled over the shotgun. You constantly have these people who bring guns, and then they're scared that somebody's going to take it from them. So all this fear. All this fear. Raquel Jackson says, what about when that lady talked about his long black legs and he didn't even have socks on and his toenail was dirty? You're absolutely right. It was just some of the descriptions that the defense used. You talk about those dog whistles. When they talk about dog whistles, that is a phrase that they use. The dog whistle, just a dog can hear, that kind of thing, something specifically for that. But what these are the megaphones. Everybody can hear it. They're not trying to conceal it. The racism is blatant. It's blatant. Thankfully, the jury did not buy this. Thankfully. The defendants never witnessed a crime. They're not the police. They weren't investigating anything. They have no immediate knowledge of a crime. Ahmaud Arbery was not an aggressor. He hadn't committed a felony. There was no citizen's arrest, and therefore is no self-defense. This murder was totally unjustified. And it is the result of vigilante justice. Yes. Yes. So the verdict today was a verdict based on facts. The jury system does work. It worked today. The verdicts for this trial come in a period of renewed focus. Under the microscope, America's judicial system, thanks in part to some high-profile cases across 3 states. We've been talking about these 2 trials, but there was another trial yesterday. Jurors in Virginia found the white nationalist organizers of the very deadly Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville back in 2017, found them liable for more than $25 million in damages. Now, let me say this. They don't have $25 million. This is about crippling those organizations in that situation. So, of course, Friday, the Wisconsin jury acquitted Kyle Rittenhouse, who's been parading around with Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, hanging out at Fox News and all that kind of stuff. No surprise there. No surprise there. But if a black man just got acquitted of murder and then decides to go on, I don't know what, BET or Revolt TV and start, kicking it with Nori or going on a Breakfast Club and talking smack, people will be looking at them crazy. Nothing is going to bring back Ahmaud Arbery. His parents, loved ones. He was killed on February 23rd, 2020. Right? And his death didn't become part of the national consciousness until May, when the video that Brian taped was leaked and posted online. This was weeks before the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, weeks before those national and international protests about police brutality and systemic racism. Weeks before that. You know, shortly after Aubrey's death, family members were raising the alarm that no arrests or charges had been filed weeks after he was killed. His family, activists, of course, knew that race played a factor in law enforcement's initial reluctance to act. They didn't want to do this. They didn't want to press these charges. They were forced to. They were forced to. Because it took more than 2 months before the local authorities asked the GBI to open a probe into the case. They didn't even want to do it. Didn't even want to do it. So prior to that, the opening of the probe into the case, prior to that, 2 district attorneys recused themselves. One of those attorneys, the former Brunswick Judicial Circuit District Attorney Jackie Johnson, who is white, was indicted in September. She faces charges stemming from allegedly directing law enforcement not to arrest Travis McMichael and for showing favor to Greg McMichael. All this is in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. There was a lot going on. So Greg McMichael is a retired law enforcement officer in the area. GBI arrested McMichaels on May the 7th, 2 days after receiving the case. 2 weeks later, Brian was arrested. So, a lot of parallels. Nearly a decade ago, we talked about it earlier, the killing of Trayvon Martin. A lot of similarities here. You have a similar situation where a white person is confronting a black person who is trying to get away, and excessive force is used, and that person dies. Yes, a lot of similarities. People, you really need to pay attention. Pay attention to the players in the criminal justice system. Why am I saying this? Prosecutors are elected. Judges are elected. But most people don't pay attention to judicial elections. We are putting these prosecutors and judges in those seats, in those positions. Got to pay attention to these things. Race hovered all over the trial proceedings from the onset. From the nearly all-white jury selection, they thought that these folks were going to be on their side. The defendants claimed deadly force was in order because they were scared of an unarmed black man. So Robert Moya says, I thought they were appointed. All judges are not appointed. We're not talking about the Supreme Court. Judges run. Prosecutors run. They're running for office. Do your research. Do your research. Google it. There was the one of several problems that I had with the defense attorney Laura Hoagie, whatever, her, the defense attorney, one of the defense attorneys. She said turning Ahmaud Arbery into a victim after the choices that he made does not reflect the reality of what brought Ahmaud Arbery to Satilla Shores in his khaki shorts with no socks to cover his long, dirty toenails. She tried to paint the image of Ahmaud Arbery as a repeated nighttime intruder. She was trying to get in the heads of the mostly white jury. Kevin Goff, attorney for Bryan, asked the judge to bar black pastors from the courtroom. Thankfully, that request was denied. But this is that mindset. Until we break the back of this type of thinking, we're going to continue to be here. So the verdict sends an important message, but the fact remains that we still have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. The jury arrived at the correct verdict despite the tactics, despite all of the foolishness that the defense was trying to throw. The jury, the guilty verdict jury came to reflects that our justice system is doing its job. That alone is not enough. That alone is not enough. Georgia's governor, Brian Kemp, said that Ahmaud Arbery was the victim of vigilantism. He continued, he's a Republican, says that has no place here in Georgia. He added that he hopes that all those following the case can now move forward down a path of healing and reconciliation. Healing is needed. Healing is needed. Nothing is perfect, and the American criminal judicial system remains flawed, to say the least. In a trial where race was at the forefront, for once at least, justice was not just blind. Justice was colorblind. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok at The Diamond K Show. Of course, on Fire Television, I am here, The Diamond K Show. The program also sponsored in part by Flyers on Fire. If you need a flyer created, Flyers on Fire can design your quality digital flyer in 24 hours. Are you promoting something on social media? Flyers on Fire can help brand your message with a quality digital flyer. Visit them on Instagram at Flyers on Fire. So, of course, the Diamond K Show is a part of the On Fire Television Network, an advertiser supported audio and video network that you can get breaking news, podcasts, TV shows, all covering topics that are important to our culture. OnFireTelevision.com is where you go to discover, engage, and connect with the latest news, podcasts, and of course, original TV programs. You want to support the Diamond K Show? Very easy to do that. Head on over to OnFireTelevision.com, grab a t-shirt, some other merch. You can become a sponsor of the Diamond K Show for as little as $50. I'm able to deliver our news and our views because of our listeners and, of course, our amazing sponsors. I will be back here tomorrow. Thanksgiving broadcast, 11 a.m. on the East Coast to 12 noon. We're going to be talking about homelessness and some of the things that are happening to try to combat that, not only in the city of Baltimore, but across the country. We're going to be talking about that, a very needed discussion on homelessness. A lot of other things. I'm going to tomorrow talk about some stories in Baltimore and some Joe Biden stuff and other things. It's tomorrow is Thanksgiving, but it is going to be business as usual for everyone here at On Fire Television. But I definitely want to say happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, all of that good stuff as we're entering into this holiday season with Thanksgiving and Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all of the other things that are coming up. So as I said, I'll be back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. for the discussion on homelessness, and the Diamond K Show also will be back tomorrow.